Hello to all my digital peeps out there in the universe and beyond in the digital space. So I missed a couple of days, but I'm backtracking and I am going to do every video I missed. So I missed Sacred Saturday videos, video. And so I really wanted to touch base on that and really stick to my commitment of being present and putting out my daily themed videos. So, I say always, better late than never. So one of the things I wanted to speak about in regards to holding ourselves sacred. So that's the topic I want to speak on today, is with regard, the subtopic basically is how we can hold ourselves, sacred, to keep ourselves sacred. I was speaking to a client recently, and she had a big argument and disagreement with her husband. It was pretty nasty. It was, pretty hurtful, I'm sure, on both sides. One of the things that my client told me was that she felt that she was always doing for other people, that she was always making sure everybody else was happy, always making sure her kids were happy, always making sure that her husband was happy, and doing kind of like, well, what I call the old school mentality of the wife is at home with the kids, the husband goes home and work, and then when the husband gets back home from work, he basically gets to lounge around for the rest of the night while the mother continues taking care of the kids, running the household, doing, all that stuff. And as anybody knows that's a parent, or maybe even not a parent, if you know that where you've watched a child before, imagine watching 2 or 3. After about 1 hour, 2 hours, especially if they're young and they're toddlers, anywhere from like ages 6 and below, it gets pretty hectic. You have to have a lot of capacity for energy, for patience, for understanding. And what happens is, a lot of times, oh, that was cool. Oh, I just got sidetracked, but that was cool. There was like this automatic, like, what are those called, like sideboards, or for the foot where you step off in a car, and it came out and then it went back in. Anyways, that's cool. Never seen that before. So anyways, back tangent number 1. So at the end of all that, keeping the house clean as best as she could, making sure them dishes were done, I'm sure, making sure the laundry and the load, and this can be a daily routine that happens with having to take care of other people. And then your spouse, with that old school mentality of with whoever's working gets to come home and relax because, well, they're tired from a long day's work. But there's no judgment here. The reason I call it an old school mentality, and I'm going to bring it back around to being, the sacred part of it, like how the sacred of ourselves, like keeping ourselves sacred, fits into this. And what happened, and this breakthrough that this client had. So the reason I call it, though, an old school mentality is because of the fact that once worked for almost every family in this country, right, at one point in time. But bringing it fast forward, people, not just women, but men, women, we're starting to realize, right, that there's more to us than just the traditions and the boundaries that others have placed around us, than just the history of what our family is used to doing and what their parents taught them and what they witnessed, and even like maybe not actively being taught. They probably just by looking at the way that their family dynamic was, right, they picked up certain habits and certain things and the way to speak to children, or to speak to, spouses, or speak to people around them. And it doesn't work anymore, because we're all realizing that there's more to life, there's more to experience, there's more to love, there's more to share, there's more to ourselves as a person than just, you're just so and so the mom, or you're just so and so the dad. You're so much more. When you were born into this earth, like, for example, I'll use me, that's the best way to do it. I was Mandy. I was Mandy, and just because I had kids, or just because I got married, or it's like we forget ourselves. We forget that we are still Mandy. We forget that we are still a person, an individual, and how unique and special we are. And we tend to like box ourselves in these interpretations of what, like, either, like I said, our family thinks that we should be, or what society thinks that we should be. And we end up diminishing ourselves. We end up slowly killing our soul, basically, therefore killing ourselves. We kill ourselves first in the spirit, and then our mind goes, and then our body goes, right? Our body's always the last to go, but our spirit and our minds go sometimes long before our bodies go. Sometimes it goes quickly, but, and that to me is a devastating, it's a very heart-wrenching way to live. And I just, I've been there. I've been there where I'm like, okay, what am I doing? Like, I feel like miserable, like, in this life. What am I doing? And that's the question we need to ask, is what am I doing? So anyways, bringing it back around, that's an old school way of thinking. So now what it is it's not, people are realizing that taking care of children is very hard. Running a family and a household is very hard. It's very time consuming. It's very energy draining. I need to turn up because I'm getting hot up in here with all this, Hold on one second. Okay, I don't want it to be too loud because I want y'all to be able to hear me get the message. Okay. So, like, with me and my relationship, and here's the thing, I want to make a disclaimer because I believe this. Whatever is good for each family, if that couple or the head of that family both agree and are happy or are making their own choices, because I don't believe in sacrifices. I don't believe that there's a sacrifice for any. I think there's a choice that we all get to make, and it's either to have, not to have, to do, not to have, to be, or not to be, right? It's an exchange. These are value exchanges that we do all the time on a daily basis. So whatever is good for each family, fine. This is so funny. I was actually sharing this with my client. I told my client this. I said, look, a long time ago, when I used to work overseas, there was this older gentleman, right? And I'm going off on tangent number 2, but there's a point to this. There's an older gentleman, and he told me about his days. Oh my gosh, I can't believe. When him and his wife used to be swingers. And I ain't talking about the dancing. You know what I'm saying? I mean, there was some dancing, but it was like some crazy, intimate, close dancing. And so, yeah, swingers. For those of you that don't know, go ahead and Google it. And I was just like, and this person you would have never thought, right? You would have never thought. I mean, look at him. He looked like he was like, I don't want to give away too many details, but he looked like he was like Santa Claus kind of in a way. He was jolly like him, had the features. It was so funny. He was this kind of smaller little old guy. He was like, I don't know, 60 something when we used to work together. Nicest guy, right? Very hardworking guy. But he said, oh yeah, me and my wife, we used to swing back in the day, and he would tell me these stories like so casual. And I was just like, my mind was blown. I was like, really? And no judgment either. I was always found fascinating, different people's lives, how they lived, what, made them happy. And for them, the point of that story is, for them, they were okay with that. For them, it was a time in their life where they wanted to experiment or experience or just do something, and they did it, and they were both fine with it. And that's them, right? Obviously, the consequences of what that put on the relationship, I'm not sure of all that, but all I know is at that time when he was telling me, he was like, yeah, we're okay with it. And he was telling me how, like, every third year, like, the relationship takes a downpour. Like, every third year, basically, like, that's when the relationship, like, there's this kind of, like, algorithm. Let's use, like, common, words that we use today, the algorithm, right, of marriage. And he said, so every third year, it gets bad, it gets tough, but then, it gets good for 3 years, and then it goes back down. And he said that's his experience with marriage. Okay, so the point was, I told her, I said, so you have to understand what it is that you want. What is good for you? And what happened was, now we're back to my client. We're off of that story, back to my client. She was saying, sorry if I'm getting loud. When I get passionate into something, I get loud and I forget. But hey, this is me, right? Me and 100%. And she was saying, you know what? Like, I'm miserable. Like, I don't want to be with my kids. Sometimes I just want to be alone. And she's like, is that wrong? And I said, no. I immediately had no hesitation saying that. I was like, no. I mean, I don't feel that on a daily basis, but you know what? Let's be honest here. Like, I felt that at least one or two times, at least a couple of times for sure. And maybe as soon as even recently, a couple months ago maybe. And I was like, no, I can relate, I understand. But then that's where we come to a point where it's like, okay, what the heck is going on? Like, why do I feel this way? Why is my life like this? And I told her a lot of it has to do with self-responsibility. A lot of the decisions we made in the past, all those small little decisions that you thought, oh, it doesn't mean anything, right? Those are the results. Those are all manifesting into today of what's going on. This is what's creating what is going on around us. It's not so much what other people are doing. It's not so much what the world is doing. It's what we're doing. It's what we're putting out into the world. It's what we're telling people and communicating to them by what we accept and what we allow, that, hey, this is okay for you to do. So in regards to, right, I'm kind of jumping back and forth, but regards to the old mindset of, you know, the man or whoever the breadwinner is goes out, works, comes back home and relaxes. That's not working anymore. That's not okay. That's not good. And that is my opinion. Me and my husband, we don't do that. When we go out for work, we understand that we are both awake. We are both actively doing something. If we're not working on the business, we are working on our kids. We are working on rear-ending them and sometimes I say some crazy shit. We are working on child rearing them. Sometimes we rear them, right? Give them a little boot when they need it. But no, you know, we're raising our children. I call it training them. I mean, that's what I believe. I believe, like, you know, with all the love and care and respect, but we're essentially training. We're training little people. We're responsible for the majority of how these children are going to, you know, be raised. And it's not so much like, okay, the experiences they have so much, but it's like, how are we speaking to them? How are we talking with them and allowing them to think and to really like think and use our brains, which is like probably the least, like the one muscle we use the least. Tangent number 2 or 3, I'm sure. But the point is, it's like, so for people out there that are working, this is a side note, and for people out there or that are at home, don't ever underestimate the fact that one or the other is doing more than the other. It's when you guys come together, who is actively doing something and who is not. Who is there like working on something, or are you just doing something that's passive? You know, like, are you there like working like on like making money, or are you trying to, like, you know, build an empire and a legacy? Or are you kind of sitting there watching Netflix? Are you sitting there, you know, like reading stuff when you could be doing that at another time instead of helping your spouse? Because let me tell you, when the person from work gets home, children don't stop. The household stuff doesn't stop. So that's just something to think about, right? And this is something I told her. So you have to understand that maybe that's an old school mentality and it's not working, and it's something that you have to bring up and discuss. But you can't blame your spouse for, I don't want to say taking advantage, but for basically doing what he's doing, because see, to a certain degree, she's allowing this, right? We allow this by the things we say. We allow this by the things, by our presence, and by, you know, what we choose to put up with and what we don't. So at the end of the day, here's the thing. I told you got to understand that you need to hold yourself sacred. You need to give yourself some time to you. You have to do things. You don't have to, right? Because that's the thing. You don't have to do anything. It's that metaphorical gun to your head, which is being held by you. So you don't have to, but if you want to be a happy person, then you're going to want to make a decision that puts you in a position to be happy, to enjoy yourself, because you're a human too. You're somebody, you're somebody with special gifts and something to put out into the world, and you have ideas, and you're, you know, we all have these ideas, and we need to be able to express them somehow. Yes, we have responsibilities. Nobody's saying, you know, forget your responsibilities and do whatever you want. Of course not. And I told her, see, that's the thing is, she said, well, would it be wrong if I left? I said, yes. I said, it would be wrong. It would be wrong because those children are innocent. It's, you know, it's our responsibility. And she knows I'm saying this with no kind of judgment, nothing at all. Everybody has these kinds of questions. And it's not about, oh my gosh, I'm a bad person because I thought about that. Oh my gosh, I'm a bad person because I actually want to do it. I told her, here is where The strong and the great are differentiated between the weak and the people that, you know, are just, that are selfish and think about themselves. Is when you choose to make the decisions and actually act on your feelings and your thoughts. You know, are you actually going to walk out on your family, or are you actually going to take off for like a weekend and say whatever, you know, and leave your family? No, because, you know, the innocent that is involved in this, they don't deserve that, right? No, kids don't deserve that. They didn't ask to be brought into our world. We wanted to bring them into this world. And aside from that, we were actually blessed, right, with those gifts. Our children are gifts, and that they should be treated as such. So it matters about, what are you going to do in this moment? Do you have awareness, and do you know what you're going to do? Now that you know and you're aware that you feel this way, that you're thinking this way, what do you want to do? What is a legacy you want to leave behind? And you want to teach your kids also, right? You want to show them in the way in which you live your life. This is one of the biggest ways. We think that we're teaching our kids by like how we speak to them, you know, and how we like make them feel, which all that is great, of course. But they see and they learn from how we live our lives, from how we move, from how we walk, from how we talk with people, from how we, you know, like speak with them. They learn. That's the biggest way and the most impactful way that we learn. And all of us know that. Think about it. When you're looking at somebody and you see what they're doing, we make judgments, right? We put up these stories in our head, and we have these ideas of what we think is the truth. And when people see that, and when our kids see that, for them, they're creating their memories and their truths and their experiences with, okay, so that's the lesson my mom's teaching me. That's the lesson my dad's teaching me. When it gets too hard, or when I don't want to deal with it, then I need to leave. I got to go. Okay. You understand? Okay, so here's the lesson. When it gets hard and it gets rough, then you back down from your masculinity, right? And you come forward with all that love and that grace and that gentleness that you can. Because sometimes, not even sometimes, I believe a lot of times, love is so hard to implement. Love is so hard to implement. People think because, oh, well, I feel love for you, I love you. No. How are you behaving toward me? If you love me, then you're not going to say these hurtful things. You're not going to do these hurtful things if you love me. You know, love is about looking at yourself and what are you doing to help or hurt others. And to get us into a space and a place where we're going to be the best as we can be, we have to hold ourselves sacred. We have to hold ourselves accountable. We have to have standards for ourselves. And that means that we are sacred, that we're not going to allow anybody or anyone or anything in this life to touch us in a way that is going to leave a lasting effect on us. Because if we allow that, and that's by choice, if we allow things, because see, here's the thing, we could sit in our resentment, we could sit in our hurt, we could sit in our pity parties and look at what everybody's has done to us. And believe me, I have been wronged in all kinds of ways. So I'm not speaking on speculation, I'm speaking on my truth and a lot of deep, hurtful shit. Ooh, you get passionate when you're doing your cuts, you know it's passionate, right? But I've been through that. So I'm sharing with you everything that's coming out is coming out because you obviously needed to hear this. But it's coming out from a place of my truth, of my love, of what I saw my life through my eyes as, and the experiences and lessons I've learned. Some of those lessons were like a slap in the face, and some of those lessons were like, you need to shut up, be silent, and be still. And that lesson is one that I'm learning a lot, and I'm going to be implementing a lot in the year 2018. Is learning, and I've learned that lesson a little bit at a time. So let's wrap it up, right? So for the Sacred Saturday video, I want you to think of one thing. And here's the thing, you have to know and you have to be able to identify what makes you happy. You know, if cleaning up after everybody, if washing dishes all day and washing clothes all day is not something that makes you happy, then we need to think about what is going to make us happy. We need to think about, what can I do? How can I change the momentum of my life and the direction that it's going, how can I slow this down and turn it and start implementing things that are gonna excite me, make me feel a little bit of joy? Because when you're a great, better you, and you're rested, and you know, you've maybe I don't want to say spoiled, I don't like that word, but you've treated yourself, you know, and you've been kind to yourself, and you're just loving on yourself a little bit, it permeates through and it gets out into the world. It shows and it shines. And when you're happy, come on, think about it. When you've just done something, let's just talk about sex. I know this is a little bit intimate, but for real, when all of us have sex and we've just made love, and we're after that, how do you feel? You feel good. You're just like singing. You're on top of the world, right? And you're just like, oh, joy to everything. I feel good right now. Love everywhere. I love everyone. You're just happy. That is the most intimate form, I think, of love, you know, when two people come together. That can be expressed, right, is making love. And that's why I use that expression. And but, you know, that can be shown in a kiss, you know, in a sweet hug. And a hug where a child is screaming his head off, and you just take him and you grab him and you just embrace him and hug him and let him know. And you're strong in your patience. You're strong because you've taken care of yourself, because you've had patience with yourself, and you've given love to yourself, and you know, dang, this is what I need. I know that I need this. And I'm getting a little emotional right now, because we have to remember that other people out there need that. And that at one point we were down on our knees. And we have to think, why were we like that? What were we doing to ourselves? You know, so we got to learn to love ourselves. We got to learn to appreciate ourselves, and to put our foot down sometimes and say no. And we don't have to be angry. We don't have to say no, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. But we do have to learn to say, it's got to stop right now. I need something. What worked before, and maybe let me say something too, maybe what worked before was great before, but when you start to feel your life going down in downward directions, that's time for you to step up and stop and say, okay, what do I need to do right now? What is it that I need? Nobody can tell you what you need. Your spouse cannot tell you what you need. Your mother can't tell you what you need. Your father cannot tell you what you need. The priest cannot tell you what you need. The pastor cannot tell you what you need. God can tell you what you need, and he speaks to you through your spirit, through your heart, through that living entity inside of us that's holding this body up, right? That energy source. So that's what you need to trust, not anybody else and what they say. Yes, take in consideration, ask, you know, for people's ideas, but be very careful, because you have to remember, not other people's values are your values, and that's important. You have to I really don't like that word. I gotta work on what I suggest. And what I did was I got with people that are congruent with my values and what I want. And if they weren't, and if they were, you know, and if they're not, I just more or less like release them. You know, and that's as it is, and I wish them well, and for them to be happy, and I'm gonna still keep searching and going on. So hopefully you got value from this. Okay, the point at the end of this video, right, is I'm gonna leave you with some, I'm gonna start trying to leave you with some like tangible and like some exercises you can do, right? So what I'd like for you to do, for those people that are into it, they're like, okay, well, what do I do? Identify just one thing. I don't want to overwhelm you. I'm the type of person, I could take in a lot. I can take in a lot. I can read a lot, big chunks at one time. But apparently the majority of people, they need little bits of information, little bits at a time. And that's okay. So here's the thing. Identify one thing that you feel would make you happy. You know, is it a massage? Is it a pedicure? Is it going outside on a rocking chair, and if you have a rocking chair, right, obviously, if the shoe fits, and sitting outside and just like seriously being among nature, looking at the sky, looking at the trees, breathing it in, like maybe practicing some awareness. How do you feel when you're inside of a house versus how do you feel when you're outside of a house? I don't know, for me, I feel energized when I walk out of my house and I'm like outside. There's something beautiful and special and energetic about going outside and out from an enclosed box, right? And into an open area. So, but pick one thing and try a few things out, you know. Like I said, I was giving some examples, reading a book, maybe one of the other examples I gave, listening to an inspirational YouTube compilation, or, you know, look around on Facebook, look for some groups, but find something of your own, you know, something artistic. Maybe you like to do arts. Maybe you used to be an artistic person. Maybe you used to love to write poems. I used to love, you know, writing poems. I used to love writing stories. What else? Let's see. I mean, I love music. I love karate kicking, ass kicking music, you know. Music. What am I talking about? Movies. That's what I was trying to say. Movies, right? Just a little something to get you into a place where you're like, okay, I feel good. And when you feel good, ride the momentum of that energy and that feeling and that happiness and that joy, and spread that to somebody else. Use that to spread to somebody else. Write down one thing that you can do to make you happy. Go ahead and put that into practice. Okay, this makes me happy. Okay, so this is on this day, this is what I'm gonna do. Or once a week, every Saturday, you know, you need to speak with your spouse and let them know, like, I need to go and spend an hour for myself. So can I go and like chill at the coffee shop with my friend, or can I, you know, go and just be by myself at the coffee shop and just learn to be with myself. I know there was one point when I couldn't stand being alone. I was like, I felt so sad. I always wanted to be around people. I loved being around people. And when I was alone, I was lost. I would cry my little eyeballs out, like, oh my God, like, I don't like being alone. But as I got stronger in myself and stronger in the things that I liked and what made me happy, and just kind of, you know, like the little things about me that brought joy to my life, I got stronger. I got more powerful. I became happier. And that's just obviously one piece of the puzzle to, you know, to designing a life of freedom. So hopefully that gave you guys some value. I know I'm saying this again. You know, be kind to yourselves as well as others. Please, especially, you know, be kind to somebody else. You never know what they're going through. And, you know, try something new. See where it takes you, okay? Be a free spirit. Have a brave heart. And I will catch you guys on the next video. Bye.